I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Today's guest is Chris Mercadel, personal trainer and physician's assistant with Ochsner Health. And I am truly grateful to call Chris a close friend as well as a colleague for nearly 2 decades. And you know how we all have those people in their lives. They're part of us. They are part of our core. They know us through and through, and they pretty much know what you're thinking without you even having to say it. And so that's how Chris is for me. So some background information about him. Chris is a physician's assistant with the Sports Medicine Institute of Ochsner Health here in New Orleans. And before that, he was a personal trainer and strength coach for 15 years at Ochsner Fitness Center, which is where I work. That's my full-time job over there that I do in addition to this podcast. Chris is also a certified exercise physiologist through the American College of Sports Medicine. And in his role with Ochsner's Sports Medicine Institute, Chris works really closely with patients in the clinic, which he'll share some of those experiences with us, just some things he's learned, some trends that he sees. He also assists in high school and college event coverage across the greater New Orleans area. And on a personal note, Chris is my top go-to resource for all things exercise related. So from his years of experience at Ochsner Fitness Center and now as a PA, he truly has so much knowledge on physical wellness and performance. And even better, though, is his innate ability to connect with people, to break things down into simple steps that will really stick with us. And also his ability to motivate. People love Chris. They simply don't want to let him down. So they follow through. They do what he says. And most of the time, there's always those who, of course, can be more challenging patients or clients. But for the most part, he helps to bring out the best in all of us. In today's podcast, Chris and I talk about the trends that we see with clients and patients, the overlap of behaviors and mindsets that he sees from the physical standpoint and also that I see from a nutritional perspective. Also, the common threads that he sees in both the medical setting as well as the personal training side of things. We'll talk through the self-sabotage that is just so common, also injury prevention and treatment, and what to look for, what to ask about in a personal trainer. So welcome, Chris. I'm excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. And this is my first podcast, so I'm just a little nervous.
Chris doesn't get nervous. You're going to be nervous for like the first 20 seconds and then settle into it. So you and I know so much about each other, and it is funny doing a podcast and like kind of talking about like, how do we even narrow everything down? Because normally when we're talking, it's like all over the map. It's all types of things. But I think the things that we really have that kind of overlap are years of experience with clients and you now with patients. And we see a lot of these common things over and over and over. And I feel like if our brains were together and we could just infuse this into people, it almost feels like we could like solve the world's problems, at least a lot of the health problems.
Exactly. That's what I'm here for.
So talk to us about your background and kind of your journey. So you were a personal trainer for 15 years, longer?
About 16 years.
And you've been a PA for just over 3?
Yep.
What did that look like? Like, because you as a personal trainer your schedule was slammed. You were incredibly successful with that. People responded really well. And, you know, I think anybody kind of on the outside looking in would say in anybody's measure, it was an incredible level of success. So when did you start thinking about, okay, what's next for me and taking that next step to become a PA?
Well, I think it all started probably post-Katrina. I relocated and started living in D.C. I had an epiphany. I had a moment where I was working at a sport club, personal trainer there. One of the guys there, he was mopping the floor. He had an engineering degree, like a bachelor's in engineering. And my undergrad originally was at UNO, known for their international engineering program, very competitive. And that was the moment where I was like, man, this guy, he's mopping the floor with an engineering degree. I need to go back to school. So it was one of those moments, and it was just very competitive up there. I got a taste of the real world. That was the moment where I knew I was going back for a master's program. And originally, that started off with master's in healthcare management. Now, doing the program, I loved it. I loved everything I learned. I loved the challenge. I realized that maybe administration wasn't going to be in my near future, that I really wanted to even go back for more. And that's when I decided to pursue a career in medicine.
You're so hands-on too, that I feel like if you were an admin without that patient contact, you would really miss that.
So that was pretty much what I thought of. I at one point I thought originally it started with, I thought I'd reach every goal I can possibly reach as a trainer, and I just wanted more. And that's pretty much where it kind of started, and me doing it, going the administration route. But then something else, maybe I caught the knowledge bug or something. Maybe I just wanted more and more, and being able to pursue something that I never thought I would be able to do was, it was a blessing, and it was like very fulfilling. I think that was a big draw for it, being able to learn something so quickly and embracing the challenge.
And every time I would see you throughout the time that you're in PA school, like, I would be excited to see you because your time was so limited. So I wasn't seeing you as much. And every time I would see you, you're like sharing whatever is that week that like you're immersed in and learning. So you're right. Like you're just like a sponge for knowledge and soaking it up. Something that you don't talk about a lot, but you've shared before is, growing up, it wasn't something that you thought you would have gone this route because you were diagnosed with dyslexia.
Yeah. So, it's one of those type of things when you're growing up, people tell you you're a slow learner. But not until later on that we realized that I had a little touch of dyslexia. And, it was kind of one of the motivating factors for you to kind of continue to get, more educated and learn more, because you feel like you don't want to be kind of in a box or presented a certain way or, perceived as not being intelligent.
So being able to, it's truly proving it wrong. Like it's
a motivating factor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you're not, I think there's people that it's clear that they're proving something to someone, whether it's themselves or someone else, but you have so much motivation that comes from within. But I think that's just it's really inspiring for us to hear, because on the outside, someone looking at it would say, well, this path has been pretty easy. It's been pretty straightforward for Chris. Like it seems like, between your personality and your knowledge base, someone would make that assumption. So to know that there was a struggle in the back end is really insightful.
Yeah, you just don't know what people, where they started from and where they're going, based on just kind of seeing them on the surface. But yeah, it hadn't been easy, but I don't regret anything, and I'm glad that I was able to take the route, and I'm blessed that I was able to take the route that I have taken.
And combine that with like your craving for constant education, constant knowledge. And I feel like just like your passion for like human performance, like you love that aspect of it. And you've taken a lot of what you did with personal training, and now you're translating that with medicine.
Yeah, it's you definitely see the correlation there, and it's good to bring that kind of background to our practice. And a lot of these guys, they trained with a lot of sports related stuff.
Yeah, tell us about kind of the types of patients you're seeing a lot, and kind of what your role looks like.
So we see sports injuries, but we see orthopedic stuff. So, I mean, it doesn't just stop with just basic orthopedics. We see a lot of different sports injuries. So my job entails me having my own clinic, and, I see patients in the kind of orthopedic sports medicine setting. But and we treat, diagnose just like normal doctors do, and order like advanced imaging if we need it. But another part of our job in sports medicine that's very specific to sports medicine or over orthopedics would be like game coverage. So we're responsible for different schools that we actually, we're their official provider for. My schools are Xavier University and St. Aug High School. If you're not from Louisiana, St. Aug High School is known for their band, and people pay them, to travel and get performances. And Xavier University, very very well known for their pharmacy program. And so those two, I mean, sideline with the games. I help with injuries if they need. We're really big hands on with their access to healthcare. We get them in. We get the imaging we need. We get them expedited for surgery if they need it. And so that's part of our duties. And we're sideline. For football games, we're out there. We're running out to the field. If it's something emergent, we have to, hop in the ambulance with them and, to make sure that they're taken care of. So those are part of our responsibilities, but I'm also first assistant in the operating room. So I assist the surgeon with some of those surgeries that we're talking about, like ACL ruptures and, total knees and that kind of thing.
So it's being able to be on the field with athletes, which is a cool, fun aspect of it, or can be. It has highlights of that. Then the clinic time where it's office visits with patients, and then the surgery time.
Yeah. So I always tell people, I got 3 jobs and, rolled up into one. And one of the other things that I do that I really love doing, keeps me motivated, keeps me on task, is I do a little bit of teaching as well. I teach a history of African Americans in medicine over at LSU Health. Also teach sports medicine and orthopedics classes, and kind of an introduction to orthopedics. And I also do a little bit of that. This will be my first year over at Xavier Ochsner PA program, teaching them, the young PA students, orthopedics as well.
That's so cool because even probably, less than a decade ago, you didn't know this was going to be the route that you were, or you had it in the back of your mind, but it wasn't something you knew was going to be a sure thing. And now you're there, you're doing it, you're working in this profession. So to be able to teach and help to influence those who are in the same position you were in not so long ago too.
It's so rewarding. I mean, just to be able to, people say it's called giving back, but it does help you to remember, the reason why you did this in the first place and get you excited about, coming to work every day.
And people may not think that they're probably nervous coming into the profession. They may not be sure that they've got what it takes to make it. I'm sure there's some who are like more than sure they do, but then there's others who maybe their confidence is a little shaky. And so working with someone like you or hearing from someone like you can kind of help give them that boost they need to feel like they can do this.
Right. It's definitely achievable. I mean, if you put your mind to it, that's so cliche, but it's so true.
So what are some of the things that are like common trends or mistakes that you've seen both as a PA and as a trainer? Because what are those things that you get on your soapbox about?
Oh yeah,
there's
the time.
So much.
So one of the biggest things, and I've probably had like 3 this entire just this week, where you have the individual that they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do it not right now. And
right now, exactly.
Right now, I'm going to get it done immediately. But they start doing things where they tend to do more volume than they used to, or they just starting a program and they're trying to, be, like join the Olympics because they're working out way too much. They're at risk of overuse injuries. And, we're seeing a lot of that, especially with the pandemic going on. We're seeing people that are maybe haven't done anything for 2 or 3 months, and then they're jumping right into it and trying to gun-ho it because they gained some weight during the pandemic.
I have to say, my brother did that. He's in Baton Rouge, and he's he needs to lose weight. I don't think he would be upset if he heard me say that. He would say, all right, I know. But he was relatively sedentary. And when he had more time during quarantine, he was walking twice a day, but fast. But then adding in stair runs and going to the stadium and really pushing himself and trying to do more running instead of walking, and then became injured. And, we see that there's, someone that you and I are both friends with who's actually in really good shape, just started working with a trainer and really wanted to kind of put herself to the next level. We won't say who it is, but if she's listening, she knows who she is. And she, didn't want to say that maybe it was a little bit too much. And then she wasn't able to move for a week.
And that's the thing. People, sometimes they don't know their limits, and they're quick to jump to an activity without putting down the proper foundation.
Yeah.
And when I get people or patients come to clinic and they're like, hey, I've been doing this, this, and this, and this, and then I ask them to squat in clinic and they can't do a basic squat, then I know that they're missing the fundamentals. And I can always use an analogy, say like, hey, when you're working out, your body's like a house. And so when you put down a house, you put down the foundation first. And if you don't have a good foundation, then that house usually crumbles. And so that's how I usually explain it to my patients, and kind of like they kind of get it and they understand, because they're usually missing out on the basic techniques of like, squatting appropriately, effectively and safely, and not putting stress on different areas, but also the volume and program design. And
so too much too soon, and kind of that extremism. That's one. And I think we see that with exercise. We see people who go from truly very almost no physical movement, whether it's they're at their desk or on the sofa or wherever they are, they're not moving. And then they start doing daily or twice a day. They start doing these classes or workouts that are just way too intense. And extremism, I think we see it in the physical activity side. And then it's often combined with extreme diet approaches at the same time, which is leaving them feeling depleted, they're run down, and it's not sustainable. So there's the risk for injury. And then there's the risk for just simply sheer exhaustion and saying, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. And so it's those personality types, you're all or nothing. And it's kind of hard to kind of steer them in the right direction of saying like, hey, you need to, kind of develop a progression to doing the things that you want to do. And you got to be more goal oriented, making smaller goals, not just kind of going 100 miles per hour every single time you're working out. And when you have that, eventually you're going to burn out. And we see that time and time again.
So what do you say to those people? Because I'm sure as someone is listening, they're like, okay, I know that's me, They're talking to me.
So I mentioned it before, is program design. And so one of the things that, people take for granted is being able to develop a program that's going to be tailored and going to be, good for you. So one of the things that people miss out on is, because anybody can go in there and destroy themselves in a workout. But it's what are you training for? What are your goals, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, and how can you safely get to that place without, suffering from, overuse syndromes or suffering from dietary disasters, of which I call them, because, people are not eating or correctly because they, either they're doing fad diets or, extremism, just like how you mentioned.
So how do you guide them for that program design? Like, where can someone go? Because I think a lot of people are, if they're at the gym, they are just doing kind of different classes haphazardly. They might be working with a trainer, or they might just be doing their own thing in the weight room or the cardio area. Or if it's at their house, they might be using apps that it may or may not be best suited for them. So how does someone start to look at program design in a balanced way for them?
So that's a good question, and it's not something that comes overnight. So one of the things that I see is you have the unlimited resources now, like based on we got the internet, we got supercomputers in our pocket. You have so many resources out there, but I see that people tend to like jump onto one article, one study, or one source of information, and that's just not realistic because who knows how that was written, if it was biased or anything like that. But you have to get your sources. You have to educate yourself on the human body, but you also want to make sure you get from multiple sources what would be the best way to do it. And hire a personal trainer. I mean, these are people that are supposed to be premier experts in their field, and that's who you want to go with.
I think if someone said, well, I don't really have a budget for that, a trainer is someone that there's people who feel like they need that trainer for accountability, and they have to go, that trainer needs to be there for that person to work out 3 times a week or whatever. But there's trainers who can really design that program for you. So you may be paying for a handful of sessions with them and for them to educate you and learn so that you can take that on your own. And then maybe a few times a year, quarterly or whatever it might be, you touch base back with them, or even longer, depending on how much they put together.
And that's exactly what was pretty much my mode of training, was just exactly what you just said. It's just like my whole mentality about training people is, hey, I don't want to see you long term. I want to give you the tools that you need in order to educate you on how can you keep going and be successful with your plan. You do have people that come in just specifically for accountability, and they just want to be able to, I'm not going to do it on my own. I want to just, go to a trainer and someone just tells me what to do. I understand those people, understand your motivation, understand why what drives you. That makes sense. But then there's other people that like, hey, all this stuff is intimidating. But I want to be able to learn this stuff myself. Being able to have the tools what you need to, design your own programs and, just bring a variety into your workouts, and being able to self-sustain your own workout. That is the key, and that's what I think a lot of people are missing.
And we can put a link on our episode notes of a link to find a personal trainer, both at Ochsner Fitness Center here in New Orleans, but then if you can help me find a link that we could find if someone's outside of New Orleans, if there's kind of a good site there.
And so I'm American College of Sports Medicine certified. And so there's national databases that have a list of all these trainers there. Every major national certification group has a database, so you can find those trainers. That's usually the easier way to find, someone that's going to be, educated and has the expertise that you needed in order to make sure you have a good, effective program.
And so we'll link to that. And so I guess as someone is listening, if you know you're that person that needs that accountability and you have it in your budget, then if you find a trainer who truly motivates you to perform at your best, and you're with that trainer 3 days a week, twice a week, whatever that might be, then that's fantastic. If not, and budget is limited, it can still be feasible to set the money aside to have a couple of those sessions with an educated trainer who can show you what to do on your own. And ultimately, it can end up saving you money because you're not buying a whole bunch of different, access to apps or equipment that you might not be using and stuff like that. So it can end up saving you. We took a trip that I was going to be out for a few months, and I was going to be in places where I didn't have access to necessarily a gym, but also I didn't know if I was going to have access to jog outside, or I might not be familiar with the area, or some areas might not necessarily be the safe that we were traveling to. So I needed to make sure I had a workout that could be done in a very small space. And so I scheduled several sessions with one of our personal trainers at Ochsner Fitness Center. It was actually with Ashley Seaman.
Oh, nice.
And she walked me through with just because I also, we packed with nothing. We had packed a backpack for all this time. So what am I going to bring? And so the very small portable bands that took zero space in my luggage, I knew some exercises on there, but I didn't know how to do a variety of full workouts to sustain me for 3 months. And so I did exactly what we're talking to our listeners about now. Is I did several sessions with her. She educated me on it. It was something that I learned, and she kind of made it modular. Okay, here's several different exercises for chest and shoulders and this. And I was able to kind of mix and match based on it.
So that's the type of stuff that's priceless because it's going to stay with you and you're going to take it with you with every other trip you go on.
So what are some recommendations if someone's looking for a trainer or they have a trainer or they're not sure if the trainer they're with is right for them? Like what are some like either red flags that you would say steer clear of these types of things and here's what to look for?
So, getting the right trainer is like getting a barber, hairstylist.
I was going to say, it's like your hairdresser. And then if it's not the right fit, it's just as hard to break up.
Right. Yeah. And it is uncomfortable when you break up because, you usually go with the same, different person in the same office.
Right.
And it's all awkward.
It's very awkward.
It's like, we have to break up. I wanted to text you, but and it's not working out. It's you, not me. So,
and it is.
Yeah, it's you, not me. So usually personalities have to come together. I mean, you want to be able to enjoy the session because there's different personality types out there. There's people out there that, hey, I don't want no one to talk to me while I'm working out. I just want to get it done. And then there's people that's like, hey, I'm looking for a friend, and so. Your personality has to match, first of all, but you'll notice, like, I used to see the clients or the gym patrons in the corner. They'll be staring, they'll be looking at me training someone, and they kind of get the idea like, yeah, I like that trainer. I want to, go meet him and see. I like the things that he do with his with his clients. And so that's one of the things that, you kind of, develop a rapport with just the personnel in the gym. But the thing is, if you look at a trainer and they're always on their phone, obviously you don't want to go with them. If you have a trainer that's, that very adamant about who they train, like if they're someone famous, those usually, those guys with, loud mouths, but they don't really have a lot of, good knowledge behind them to kind of like really tell you what you need in a program. But the thing is, you want somebody that's going to be passionate about exercise. You want somebody that's going to be educated about exercise. Like this is their life. They built it on. And you want somebody that's practices what they preaches. And you want someone that actually, I work out daily, and I'm very passionate about it because those people motivate you to do more. Other things to look for is just like I said before, there's certification out there, national certifications that prove that person actually went through the education necessary for training, whether it's ACSM, ACE, NSCA, or NASM. There's different organizations out there, national organizations. What you don't want is a trainer that got his certification out of a bag of a Muscle and Fitness magazine.
And I'll list those too, so you don't have to like remember those or jot them down. I'll put just kind of a list on the podcast notes. So finding that right trainer for us, though, like you're saying, okay, just that person, just because they're destroying you, does not mean that this is a good sign of a trainer.
Right. So you want someone that's going to be so it's goal oriented. Everything we do is going to be goal oriented, where there's short-term goals, long-term goals, but it's for longevity as well. And you want to safely be able to get there. Destroying someone in the gym, anybody can do that. I can just have someone just do lunges around the block and call that leg day.
Right.
And so, but that's longevity. That's not, something that's very sustainable. And so you potentially putting that person at risk for having a injury. And so you want to be able to find someone that's very educated on the matter, but also, understands the human body, but able to safely get you to your goals. And so a lot of times, those certifications, the way people learn, they start to like really be introduced to different injuries and understand like, hey, okay, I can't just have someone just do this because they'll open them up for having a possible injury. And so that's why I always stress that, yeah, you want someone that's very nationally certified trainer, and that understands, what's really going on. But also, you want something that's going to be tailored to you. Okay. And so there's what I find that in order to save money, a lot of times people get in these group training, and it's going to kind of be a general, hey, I'm gonna just, destroy all of you guys, but without being very tailored to that person. And so those are the people that usually get injured if they're part of some type of group fitness, and the camaraderie is there, and they're trying to, uh, you know,
Keep up.
and, trying to, stay up and be a little bit more competitive than they usually would. And that's when form and technique kind of suffer.
So we talked about the certifications. Are there certain questions to ask someone if you're new to finding a trainer?
So this is where it comes down to preference. There are certain questions you can ask, but kind of gauging someone and understanding like what drives them at training. About like, let me put an example. So if you want someone that's going to be a sports trainer, very sports specific trainer, you want to know that that person understands or been there or has done some type of sports and understand what you have to go through. And that's going to be very sports specific to you. And it's going to be a fundamental training program designed for you. So you're not going to go to a trainer that mostly works on football players if you're a tennis player, that kind of thing. And so there are trainers that, that do train the realm of all sports, but you would want to go someone, hey, I'm a basketball trainer. I played, NBA, or I played NCAA basketball. And then I went back and I got, a certification in training people. I will rather want to go to that person because they understand your expectations. They understand the demands that are required for basketball. And so that's the type of people that you want to be very, that's the type of trainers you want to kind of associate with. Whereas, you have, hey, I'm a trainer that's like, I've done a lot of weight loss programs. I design weight loss programs. This is my bread and butter. I do weight loss programs. And those are the questions you want to kind of tailor towards you, that person. Like me personally, my background was bodybuilding with weight loss, and I did some sports training, but again, I wasn't a sports trainer because that's not my area of expertise. It was more of the bodybuilding, program design, boot camp fitness, that kind of thing, because of the experience I had in the past. So experience is one of the things that you want to look for. Like, hey, what experience you had in the past? I guess you can tailor your questions toward that. And just making sure that that's going to be a right fit for you.
And what type of training do they specialize in?
Right.
Like you said, is it weight loss? Is it, performance based or bodybuilding? And, I think about people like my stepmom. If she was going to work with a trainer for the first time, she would want to know if she's in her 70s. Have you worked with a lot of ladies in their 70s?
Right.
And
so
I think that's an okay question to ask.
There's also like, hey, have you ever worked with a pregnant woman before?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's just kind of the same thing. And like, luckily I've had the opportunity to work with many pregnant women, and they felt comfortable coming to train with me because of my expertise and, my background. And so, and otherwise it's like, hey, I've never worked with a pregnant woman before. What are the things I can do and what I shouldn't do? So me knowing that right away, it's pretty much up to your OB, your doctor. They set the guidelines and I follow them. And so some trainers, if they're unaware of that, then that's probably not a person you want to go to.
And so whatever your questions are, or whatever your about me kind of question is, hey, do you have other people that are like me that you've trained? Whatever that is, the takeaway from Chris on this is ask, and
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask. And I think that's something that we don't want to come across as a bother, or you don't want to be perceived as high maintenance before you've even started training, or you've got all these questions. But before you commit, like we said earlier, breaking up with the trainer is like breaking up with a hairdresser. You don't want to get into the wrong relationship first.
Right.
So asking these on the front end can really help, because who's really a good fit for your friend for whatever reasons may or may not be for you. So I think not being afraid to ask those questions. And then finding things you love. You may not be a personal trainer person. You might be an outdoor workout person. You might be, you might prefer to do things more kind of solo, or you like the group classes at the fitness center. So it's really finding what you love that you look forward to going to, and you miss it when you don't do it.
And so that's a good point, because you don't want to do something you totally hate. It's just like I've had clients in the past, they're like, I hate this. Well, we're not going to do this, because what we don't want is you to associate something you hate with exercise,
with something that's positive for your body.
And so,
right.
and we're trying to, eliminate that. It's like, I never get this runner's high. I don't want to run. And well, we're not going to run. We're going to do other things. And I find that the people that say that, they're more open to do sport-related activities. Like, we can go outside and shoot some hoops and play basketball, and that person is perfectly fine running.
Do you remember that lady we saw shooting hoops out there?
Yeah, this lady had to be 100 years old.
She was 100.
She was shooting hoops, and she had a glass jar she would drink out.
It was before people were drinking out of glass jars too. It was before the sustainable movement.
There was no mason jars to be sold with people drinking out of it.
It didn't happen. But I remember, I think she had sweatpants on with like a skirt over it or a dress over it.
She did. And she brought she didn't get the basketball from the gym. She brought her own basketball. Yeah, that lady was awesome.
And she moved slowly.
She moved. She was doing it. She was doing it. She was getting her cardio in.
We saw her several times, and we just were like, wow, I wish we would have gotten a photo of that. It's etched in our brains, though. We're never forgetting her.
That lady was awesome.
Yeah, it's never too late.
I hope my wife looks like that at 100.
I know, that was awesome. So let's talk injury prevention. And, how do you know... I think that's the problem, is we talked about proper form. Someone doesn't even know if they don't have a good form. So how do you even start to identify if you do or don't have proper form?
So if you know, one of the things that you can do, and so we live in, most of the people working out at home, this will be easier for you to actually go through the movement, look yourself in the mirror. You can film yourselves with your phones and stuff, and that's an easier way to do it. And you can kind of see from different angles if you're performing an exercise correctly. Now you're thinking, like, how do I know if this is correct or not? There's so many different educational videos provided online that can show you what you're looking for. Like, if you're doing a basic squat, body weight squat, making sure your heel's flat, make sure your weight is not like shifting forward into the balls of your feet as you squat down, making sure you have the right flexibility, the great hip mobility while you're doing your certain exercises. And so you can actually kind of coach yourself in order to make sure you know what it's supposed to look like. And if you don't look like that, they'll be your guide. But other ways you can kind of see is just like I said, you're laying down a foundation. And what happens is we see these people come in and they're starting to have pains that they have before, and that's kind of another indicator that you're doing something incorrectly. And a lot of times, I don't have all the time in clinic. I wish I did. I jump on my soapbox and start talking about the proper way of doing things. But I usually get people set up with a physical therapist, and that way they can kind of go over that technique and make sure that, if it's hip mobility issues, if it's pelvic obliquity issues, if it's like hip flexor tightness, they can kind of, tweet out those issues and kind of start working on decreasing muscle imbalances and, work on some proper techniques there. And so that's one of the ways to get evaluated if you start having pains by one of our sports medicine specialists. And that's kind of the first step in the process.
And physical therapy, you mentioned that's giant. And I've told you, I have just overuse injuries from like not realizing that I was pushing things too hard before. And even though I've corrected that and I don't do it anymore, you still have the residuals. And having seen a physical therapist, having learned some of those small movements that really keep that foundation, as you said, you're building upon that. And there's certain things that if these core muscles aren't activating right, everything else is kind
Right.
of, that's what holds everything else together and kind of guides everything else. And so every day, probably half of my workout is things that I've learned in physical therapy that I've integrated into my normal
Right.
workouts.
Same here. And it's one of the things that, I've spent uh 16 years plus training people. I got a degree in medicine, and so the thing is, I still learn all the time from our physical therapists. They always are able to teach me something brand new I've never heard before, and I find that quite remarkable how intelligent physical therapists are. And so, it's one of the things that sometimes I have to sell it. I have to explain to someone, yeah, you need to see a physical therapist. And they're like, well, I've been working out for so long, but I'm like, look, I'm constantly learning things from them. And one of the things that I do learn from them is, those exercises that you do, like those micro movements you discussed before, those are exercises that you constantly have to do in for maintenance. And so what I tell people is you want a day of either prehabilitation, a day that you kind of prevent, even if you're not having any pain, you're trying to prevent this from coming about. Like if you had knee pain before, you started doing some physical therapy exercises and you got better, you still want to incorporate those exercises in your program.
Right. You don't just stop when it
Right.
gets
You
better.
don't just stop. And that's what usually happens. And this is a vicious cycle. And those are sometimes are the people that are frequent flyers in our clinic. They're like, hey, my knee pain came back. I'll say, oh, well, you're doing your home exercise program and those exercises they showed you? No, but we'll start doing them again. And so a lot of times you can avoid issues just by, reinitiating those exercises. Another way I explain it like this. And so I know many of you probably had a friend or someone that threw their back out by picking a sheet of paper off the floor or unplugging something. And it's never anything like I was lifting some heavy
Right.
weights.
There's not a good story.
And it's one of the things I kind of explain it this way, and people understand because they have those experiences. They know people with those experiences where your muscles are constantly firing anytime you do something. And when you have misfires, your muscles don't, they don't like contract when they're supposed to contract. And that's when those people have like those misfires and they're starting to have back pain. That's when people start to have like knee pain because their quads and quadriceps are not like firing when they should fire. And that's when those micro movements, those repetitive exercises come into play. It's like building the neuromuscular efficiency back again. And so another way I explain it is the first time you ever worked out, you did probably a couple push-ups or something and your entire body was sore. Like your abs were sore, your back was sore, everything was sore. Because the thing is, your body is not efficient at doing those exercises if there's the first time you're doing them. And over time, you gain more neuromuscular efficiency. And so over time, we also gain a lot of muscle imbalances because of the activities that we do daily. And so one of the things that we're tasked at, trying to prevent is for those things to get out of hand that cause dysfunction, and those and that can lead to potential injuries and such.
So not blowing off that physical therapist when you start to feel better, or just if your doctor gives you a referral, go. Take them up on it. And I think a lot of people go to PT and they say, these moves are so small. They seem so silly. And they think it's like a waste of their time, and it's anything but.
Right. And that's definitely true. I still do. I still incorporate a lot of those movements within my programming, and I make sure for you like 0 to 100, listeners out there, those days that, hey, I'm supposed to take a day off. I'm like physically worn. I need to take a day off, but I don't want to take a day off because I don't want to lose the momentum. That prehab day is a good day to kind of work on that stuff. So your off day, that will be your prehab day, where you're not doing, you're running or you're not doing weight training, but you're working on those physical therapy exercises, those little micro moves, and the home exercises programs in order to prevent you from having a catastrophic injury.
So extremism, we don't need to be extreme from 0 to 100 on fitness. Having, knowing what your limits are or what your needs are, if it's that trainer for check-in, or if not, if you don't need that or you don't have the budget for that, consider having an experienced trainer design that plan for you. Because as you said, having the right program design is key ultimately. And when we talk about program design, that means how much cardio do I need to get in? How much cardio at what intensity, what type of heart rate, what types of workouts do I need? Because that's very different for a lot of people. For some people, starting out, it might be 15 minutes a day of cardio is really going to be a big step for them. Others, it might be 45 at a whole different level of heart rate. And that's something that trainer can design for you. Other common trends and mistakes. So extremism, but also self-sabotage. I know that that's a trend that or not even a trend. That's just a common, thread that you and I both experience with nutrition, with personal training, with PA. The self-sabotage is incredible.
It was one of my favorite stories, my favorite memories. We were doing a Biggest Loser little class over at Elmwood. And this was not my group because I would have probably yelled at them. But these two ladies, they were talking about after their Biggest Loser 1 hour of his hardcore, like heart rate high, intensity training, they went to the ice cream shop. And so they enjoyed, they
hadn't even done their weigh in or won. It was like still in the middle of the competition.
It was like the day one. They went to got ice cream. So went to one of the little ice cream places and got like sundaes and stuff like that. And he was like, we deserve this. And like the actuality is they probably ate more calories than they burned. So.
And it's that we deserve this or I deserve it mentality that I think a lot of that self-sabotage is that, we feel like we should be rewarded. And like going to Cold Stone Creamery out in the parking lot of the gym is like, that's an extreme example, but still the feeling of rewarding or treating yourself is something that it's a self-soothing thing that I think a lot of us do, but it does undermine a lot of the hard effort that we're putting in.
That's true.
And we see it with food. We see it with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of people that we'll see that they're incredibly diligent. They may be in the gym or, hitting their workouts 5 days a week, 6, even 7 days a week, but they don't have that much to show for it because they're really undoing a lot of it in the 22, 23 hours left in the day with food.
Yeah. We know one particular, one great example, used to train with me in the afternoon where, incredible cardiovascular shape. I mean, you can just put this man through any ringer, weights, he'll throw it up. Just anything you ask him to do, but he is destroying himself. I mean, his heart rate is like in the 170s, but he drinks big and he eats big. I mean, he does not say no when it comes to food. He eats, 2 or 3 entrees and, he drinks like, yep, and he drinks like a bottle or 2 of wine, and so that's his norm. But cardiovascular wise, he can run circles around 18-year-olds. So,
but then what's happening inside of his body with that? Because I know who you're talking about, and I've heard him talk about he's going to Five Guys, right after
right.
or sometimes right before.
Right,
a workout.
right, yeah, we. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, he did do Five Guys before a workout once, and I remember how terrible he felt during the workout.
I think I happened to be there for that because I was like, "You deserve it."
Right. It was he was bragging about how he ate all the fries.
Yes,
so.
the extras in the bag. But the self-sabotage it's a real thing, and I think it's important for us to like think about us being me, our listeners, of what story are we telling ourselves? Because I think that's what, I see with clients, you see with clients, you see with patients. We tell ourselves a story that we're doing this. We're working this hard. We're putting all this into it. And we've kind of created this story of our reality of what we think we're doing. And if you really take a step back or have someone that's like in that close enough proximity, but maybe not like your spouse or your partner, you're probably not doing everything you think you're doing, or you're not doing it quite to the level you think, or there's other stuff you're not including in your story. that's undermining your progress.
And that's you. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I just can't stress how much what you said is the truth. Where people kind of develop their own reality to the point that they're in denial, and so they kind of have it in their head, this is the way the world is, but which it's not, and so that's how it leads them down to that path of destruction.
Or the perception of how hard they're working out.
Right.
I'll have sometimes people will explain they'll tell me their workout and they'll tell me what they're doing. And then when I happen to see it, like, that's nothing like what they described.
You must know my brother-in-law. He tells me, I'm going to run around the park. I was like, at the park too with my little daughter. And I was like, dude, at what point did you run? Because I saw you walking
and
around
feeding
that
the
park.
ducks.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, so I think our perception versus our reality, it's, if you're listening to this and you feel like, okay, I've been working out, I've been consistent, I feel like I'm doing all the things that I quote should be doing, but I'm not seeing the results. That's where I kind of start to think a little bit more of, okay, well, how hard have I been doing this? Or am I really working out 5 days a week, or do things get in the way and some of those workouts get edged out? Or how consistent am I with food? You may have your plan of what you're thinking is going to be your nutrition approach, but then what's actually happening? So, and that's where stuff like journaling can really help. If you have someone that can be like your buddy, that you've got that check-in, even if it's just like a daily text message with them, but having some level of journaling to increase that awareness, or something with another person to have that accountability, is huge.
Yeah, and having a no man around. That's my opposite of the yes man.
Yeah.
And so having one of those people that kind of tell you the truth all the time and you don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And having one of those people around, that definitely helps out, because they can kind of give you shed some light into what really is going on, because you can't see it because you're so close to the equation.
Which, going back to the idea of a trainer, again, even if it's someone who's just, you're doing a consulting thing and not having it on a weekly or whatever basis, they can provide that objective approach. I would caution about having that workout buddy who's also going to be that, because it can be really easy for the workout buddies to help each other not feel bad about things,
Right.
Like, oh, well, if we skip this, or let's go get ice cream,
Right.
Talking about though how hard we're working out, and are we really doing it, as hard as we could, or as hard as maybe, would be considered a good workout. It's really easy to get into a routine if you've been doing a whatever training, to reach for the same level of weights, to reach for those 15 pounds and do, your chest press or whatever. And you're doing 3 sets of 15 or whatever it is. How does someone know when it's time to go up on weights if they aren't working with a trainer, but they've been doing the same thing without risking injury? And how do you do it safely? How do you know it's time to change?
So one of the things that I really incorporated in all my workouts was the variety aspect of it. And that's one of the things that a lot of people are missing from their workouts, is variety. They think that, hey, if I do 10 reps this time and I do 20 reps next time, that's just going to be enough for variety. But you got to understand, the human body can only do so many movements. And so what you have to do is constantly put new challenges on the body in order for, to make these new challenges, making it difficult for you. The human body is incredibly well at adaptation. So what you want to do is constantly challenge it. So if not just changing reps, not just changing the weight, but also changing the tempo. You can change how slow you come back down to the original movement, or you can change, go to like the explosiveness of certain movements. But you should know, if you feel like you've gone through the workout and you haven't worked out as hard as you did like a couple weeks ago with the same workout, it's time to change.
Or you're not feeling maybe a little
Right.
fatigued or.
Right. And so I usually tell people, I used to always say, hey, I never do the same workout twice, but I do things that's very similar all the time. And so, we may do, a standing shoulder press exercise, but we may turn it into an explosive shoulder press exercise next time with dumbbells versus the barbells. So constantly changing your workouts variety would do a couple things for you. It'll keep you motivated, and it'll keep you excited about doing new workouts instead of going through movements. What happens over time is people just basically go through the basic movements of working out, and they're not really getting anything out of it anymore. If you're just going through the movements, why even go through it? So changing the tempo, changing the weights, changing how you do exercises, incorporate new exercises. These are ways that you can constantly stay motivated, and also your body tends to not learn how to adapt to it and how it constantly has to, rise to the occasion and make new changes. And so that's how you become stronger.
And so if you're at a gym, like at Ochsner Fitness Center, we have so much variety in the types of weights or machines someone could use. And that makes it easy because you can do, let's say you're doing a chest press, you could do it flat, you could do incline, you could do decline, you can do a machine, you could do free weights, you could do a bar, dumbbells. There's a lot of different ways to do a chest press.
Right. You can do explosive push-ups. You can do regular push-ups. You can have a hand on something, but this is all essentially a chest press. And so there's so many different things, but it's the same basic movements. You're extending your arms from your elbow and your shoulders. And so it's the same basic movements, but there's so many different ways to do it.
And it all targets those muscles slightly differently. And so I think if you're at a fitness center, like where we have so much stuff, that makes it easy for the variety. But I'm thinking about people who are still doing home workouts right now. Maybe they're, they have limited weights at their house. They may say, I don't want to invest in a whole nother set of weights. So changing that tempo of, really going slow on the decline or whatever that, describe that a little bit for someone if they're not familiar with what that is.
So you have eccentric and concentric movements, and you're doing your explosive, your starting position. And then when you're pushing it out, let's say for a regular chest press, that's your concentric movement. Your eccentric movement is coming back. If it's pull downs, lat pull down, or like doing a pull up, your concentric movement is pulling yourself up. Going back to original position is your eccentric movements. And the theory behind weightlifting is in the eccentric movements, that's when, you're making those changes. You're getting stronger, that kind of thing. So that's why it's part of the part of the tempo where people are slower and more controlled in.
So if it's like a bicep curl, like you would have your weights and you would go up on your normal, and then you might lower it back down for like a count of.
So you can do like a 1-3 tempo, or you can do a 1-6 tempo to just kind of challenge it. Where so 1 second up, 3 seconds down, or 6 seconds down to kind of make it more difficult. It doesn't have to be heavy weights. You'll notice the difference right away.
I think that's huge to give people a tool that doesn't mean they have to buy new weights. Right. And then if you are in a gym, well, you can do both. You could either keep your same reps for some of your workouts and increase your weight slightly, or do kind of that slower tempo is just a really easy way to change it up.
Yeah, and so also just changing how you perform the workouts itself. So traditionally speaking, you did a set and you had like a rest break between 45 seconds to a minute, but why stop there? You can be doing an active recovery. You can be doing alternating muscles. So like if you're doing bicep curls, you can be doing tricep dips without any break in between and jumping back and forth. This keeps your heart rate up. This keeps you your muscles engaged for, a different type of workout.
And it keeps your head in the game, as opposed to you might get distracted. I see so many people looking at their phones in between sets, and then you get caught up in something. And sometimes I'll feel like if, the bicep curl to a tricep dip, if you feel like, well, my arms are so tired, I can't do that. Or if it's chest and your whatever it is, do something else. You could do a little bit of a core movement, or you could do, even just like light lunges or something that's going to keep you still moving in between those.
It doesn't have to be opposing muscle groups. You can go from upper body to lower body. And so you can jump back and forth. So it's the possibilities are limitless. And so that's why it's always fun to kind of start designing your own programs, because you're able to incorporate so much more, not just kind of think like thinking, you want to think outside the box, and just people think more linear and say, oh, these are the only movements I can do. But no, you got to think outside, like so many different things you can do. And this, you can Google, you can go on the internet, and you can see so many different exercises.
Well, as we were talking too, I just made a note that I'm going to link to our Ochsner Fitness Center and our Ochsner the performance training YouTubes because they have a lot of cool videos on workouts and some different kind of like
Nice.
high intensity type training. And then also the FITT Lab app has a lot of great videos that we'll link to. And those are free. Like you don't have to pay
Nice.
for that. And so that'll just give you, and it's people who have the credentials and all that stuff. It's people that are in the role that Chris was in, showing us how to work out. So that is because just hearing it, I'm realizing as much as I know, you forget it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh wait, that's right. I could do that, So I'm like, I can't wait to work out tomorrow and start incorporating some of these,
It's so easy change, and then they get you motivated. Then you're ready to work out again.
Exactly. So other things so common threads that you see, the extremism, the self-sabotage, the not progressing ourselves and kind of getting stuck in that rut. So we've addressed all of those things. So find what you love. If you don't love, shooting hoops that can be your thing if you don't love running. And then what is what's a takeaway? I know there's so many, but kind of your big message for people of, how to stay motivated, how to stay in the game with this.
So, you got to find different motivations. The biggest thing I used to tell people is you have to have a sustainable goal. You have to have a goal period. And it has to be realistic goals. Time and time again, I hear people like, what, just move and I want you to do cardio. But that's not a goal. Being able to go out there and exercise, at that point, I just call it physical activity. If you go out there just to kind of move and be active, that's just physical activity. If you don't have a goal, then it's not considered exercise. So like you say, I'm gonna just walk around the block, but I'm gonna walk around 10 blocks or I'm gonna walk for a mile. That's a goal and that's considered exercise. And so being able to have short-term goals, being able to have long-term goals, that keeps people motivated. We talked before where you and I talked before where having like a picture, like let's say you go on a beach trip. You could plan your goals around there. Say, have a picture of the bathing suit that you're going to wear on the fridge. Making sure that you have these milestones already kind of etched in stone to kind of like say, hey, if I get here, that's going to be my goal, but I can actually move my goal. I can change my goals. And goals they don't have to be they don't have to be etched in stone. They don't have to be finite goals. And so if you don't reach it, you can always change it. You don't have to be demotivated and not want to work out again. But I think it's so important to have like short-term goals and long-term goals and realistic goals. And don't just say I want to lose, 20 pounds by next week. That's not really realistic and it's not sustainable. Being able to have like realistic and obtainable goals, I think is so important. Being able to decide a perfect plan for yourself, and that, that's where program design comes in. That's where accountability comes in. That's where, having friends and family kind of keep you motivated. And it definitely helps out, and having someone there to kind of really motivate you as well.
And I think giving ourselves that acknowledgement when we do make progress. And there might be things that, before, if you were, I don't know, just saying, doing something around the house, like lifting something up to put it in the attic. And before it was a struggle. And now you're like, wow, I can pick up this thing that's a little bit heavy and lift it over my head. And I don't feel like I'm about to drop it on myself. And you feel like you've got that core stability, or you feel like you have, there's different milestones that aren't at all related to the scale or even how your clothes are fitting, but it's related to how you're living your life daily.
Right. And so also have a plan in place for what happens if you don't reach a goal. I think some people get so unmotivated when they had a plan in place, something happened, something beyond your
beyond your control.
Yeah, beyond your control, having a moment. Beyond your control that can happen, like where, death in the family, or just work, and, things come up, your kid gets sick, things that you can't control that comes up, and you being able to have a plan in place for that.
So always making sure you have that plan B in place for when you've got your game plan in, You've got it all lined up. But then when something goes awry, what's going to be your plan B?
Exactly. So that leads us to this whole COVID thing. That's our plan B.
I was just thinking that too. Everyone had to find a plan B for this.
Everybody have plan B with the COVID thing. So during this pandemic, it's been very, very difficult to kind of find your groove and stay active. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing more patients. We were, stressed out, didn't know what was going on. And I kind of had, luckily I had my garage gym. And I was able to kind of transition to my workouts at the regular fitness center over to the garage gym.
So being, having these goals that are realistic and sustainable, and being flexible and adaptable enough to kind of,
being able to kind of manipulate and change them slightly if you need to, but you also, you have to be able to adapt to anything that comes your way and change it up. And this is a big stress reliever. We forget about the health, the mental health aspect of working out. And I tell you, with everything that's going on in the world, this is the one thing that's been, kind of keeping me grounded.
We didn't touch on that at all. And we've touched on that a lot before in this podcast and other episodes, but physical movement is 100%. I think I do it as much for the mental benefit as the physical benefit. And then I think the last thing is all these things you said and tying it all together. The bottom line is consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
Whatever you choose, whatever you love, if you're the 100-year-old lady out there shooting hoops, whatever it is, you got to be consistent.
You got to be consistent. I mean, there's no magic bullet. There's no magic pill. That's it. It's being consistent, being this part of your lifestyle. It's a lifestyle change. That's what we say time and time again. It's not like, hey, I'm just work out, lose weight, and just go back to what I was doing before.
I love it. Anything else to add? I'll put the link to the site where you are, what you do, your bio and all that, and all these links that we've talked about. But I think we've covered a lot for our listeners. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is wonderful. You guys got to understand, I've been knowing Molly for so long. It's just so weird that we're actually getting to sit down and do this. This is just a conversation between us. And so I think that if anybody learns anything from this, I think it's a win. Feel free to contact me for any kind of questions related to health and exercise. I kind of still do some of that, just answering questions, but for the most part, you can find me at Ochsner Sports Medicine. And if you got any knee pains, elbow pains, any shoulder pains, or any kind of orthopedic pains, then come and see me.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. So it's always a blast spending time with Chris. I love every bit of it. I am so grateful to him for joining us today. As mentioned, I will include the links that he talked about. We've got a lot of resources for you that'll be in the show notes of this episode. And let us know if you change things up, you mix up your workout, you try some of those little small changes, fine tunings, and you feel a difference. Tell me. We'll tell him, pass it along. And any questions you have, you heard him. He's open to it. You can reach out to him. We will have how to reach him and that website as well. So I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.